The Audi A4 Avant is a staple among many for its comfort and its innocuous yet arresting looks. Why though? There's plenty of other options like the BMW 3 Series or Mercedes C-Class. So, why the Audi? Let's get into the nitty-gritty of it and have a look. My name's Tom and you're watching Paragon Cars. Let's go. Before we start, please like, subscribe and hit the bell if you'd like us to keep bringing you this content. Also, don't forget to follow our socials for updates on our stock. Links in the description below. Now the first reason could be the engine, but with 190 horsepower and 320 Nm of torque, it doesn't exactly stand out from the competition. However, if the words EA888 mean anything to you, then you'll know horsepower and torque figures aren't always as they seem. Let me show you with the 30 to 70 Sprint. Well, at first glance you may think 6.16 seconds isn't that impressive, but when you look at the competition, namely the BMW 320i, you realise it actually, well, is. You see, the 2019 320i did 6.93 seconds, nearly a whole second slower, even though it's supposed to be just as powerful and lighter. What makes the Audi's time even more impressive for me though, is that it was only 0.8 seconds slower than a Mark III Ford Focus RS. Like, what? The EA888 engine seems to always surprise. Moving on to the inside, you'll be greeted with what I still think is one of the best interiors ever designed. High praise, I know. It's luxurious, spacious, immensely comfortable, and properly practical. The virtual cockpit is still sharp and responsive, the climate controls still look amazing, and the cup holders are perfect for anyone who isn't American. Jokes aside, it really is a cracking interior, and one that just takes the stress out of the drive better than most cars I've driven. The rear though is where this Audi starts to fall short just a tad. You see, the 3 Series offers just a bit more legroom than the Audi does these days. That, coupled with the fact you have to pay for cup holders in the rear armrests, makes this fairly hard to recommend to families with older children. Very comfortable, but the 3 Series estate takes the cake for the rear passengers, I'm afraid. Even the Audi's boot is starting to show its age, not in looks but in design. It's the typical Audi square shape, however minor practicalities like being able to fold the seats down with just a button and storing the parcel shelf under the boot floor aren't present in the Audi like they are in the BMW 3 Series, which is a shame as it's otherwise a very practical car. Anyway, let's get on the road and see why this is such a popular choice. Right, waffle, let's get it done. Wow. And again, it just sounds good. What a cracking bit of kit. Look at that. I mean, it doesn't feel much slower than an A45. So we're doing this review a little bit backwards today as we've been to Hampshire to collect a car. So, motorway up first then. Let's get our short-term memory reset, our MPG reset, and see what kind of MPG we can get on the motorway. Theoretically, this should do around 48 miles per gallon, which is actually not that high for just like a regular 2-litre petrol engine with 190 horsepower. But I'm going to drive from 60 to 70 miles an hour as fast as I possibly can, basically, on the motorway, legally of course, and see if we can get that figure. I'm sure once it settles down we should end up at around like 45, because I've driven quite a few cars before with this engine, and that's sort of around where you end up. Anyway, in terms of road noise and wind noise, Audis are very good. The A4 and A5, the B9 series cars, are absolutely mega. They're so quiet, so calm and just relaxing inside. And you know, even things like when you come off the throttle, it'll either turn off the engine or go into coast mode, which is what it's doing now. And we're not even in eco, so actually let me put ourselves in eco. It should hopefully give us a bit of a better economy figure. at that, 56 miles per gallon. I'm sure that'll start going down in a bit. And I did kind of reset it on the motorway, so like if you went from the start of the journey where the engine's cold and still warming up and you're sort of getting onto the motorway, it would be a bit lower. So this is like best case scenario. But yeah, visibility is also pretty good. But it's the lack of road noise and wind noise that's the key thing on the drive home with these cars. They are so quiet and comfortable to sit in. I mean, they're the equivalent to much larger cars. This is fairly similar to something like a BMW 5 Series, or I mean even larger Audis really, like an A6 or an A7. Very quiet, very relaxing, even at higher speeds, above 70 miles an hour, if you're on the German Autobahn. And yeah, just a nice interior to spend a lot of time in. Anyway, enough waffle. Let's do quite a lot of miles on the motorway actually, because we're on the M3 and we've got to go all the way back to Watford, which is like 35, 40 miles? Something like that. Oh, 37 miles, there you go. So yeah, I will see you in 37 miles time. Well, that's the end of our motorway section, and look at that, 55.3 miles per gallon. And we were sitting at just over 70 miles an hour for the whole duration of that, pretty much. That's pretty decent. Having said that, we did have quite a big headwind on the way to Hampshire, and we only managed, I think, 40. So, obviously we've had a bit of a tailwind on the way back. Which means, on a long run, if there's no wind, you'll see like 46 to 51 miles per gallon, depending on your driving. Which is around the same as what the 320i did. It's like a comparable car. So yeah, pretty efficient, very quiet, very comfortable, nothing to complain about there. What about the handling though? Because the 320i is a BMW, and that was loads of fun. Is this Audi A4 Avant as fun as a BMW 3 Series? Let's find out. Before we get to the fun bit of the driving section, I just wanted to say, I've been sat in this seat for the past 3 hours, like I literally haven't moved. And I'm still just as comfortable as I was when I got in. Pretty impressive really, isn't it? Anyway, in dynamic, traction in sports. Let's taste the flavour of this Audi A4 Avant. Now, we are just front wheel drive, so we do not have quattro. But it does hold its line pretty well. And once you learn how to drive these things, they're actually quite good fun. The more powerful version of this engine is in the GTI. So you kind of get that like flavour of what it would be like with a bit more power. Having said that, it's got plenty of punch, Awkwardly, it feels quite a bit punchier than the 320i did. If you don't know, that's a BMW, by the way. The competitor to this. Don't really need to do a sound check. But I do love the way these things handle. They just always, they always surprise me. They just seem to bite into the road nicely. The steering wheel is a nice shape. Steering's not positive until you're going faster, which is weird. At slower speeds, it just kind of wants to go in a straight line, but put your foot down around a corner and it just bites into the road. Look at that. Plenty of punch. It is a very windy day today, so I'm kind of like fighting the steering wheel a bit. See what the brakes are like. Go up to the 100-yard marker and boom. Very nice. Very nice indeed, actually. There's a lot of traffic today, so I do have to be a little bit careful, as people seem to like pulling out on you on this junction. But look, you sort of like tighten your line a bit, and it doesn't really understeer, it kind of just holds its line, which is nice. Like, the only time you can make this understeer is if you just try to make it understeer, but you do that with any car and it's going to understeer. So Audis these days are a lot better than they used to be, that's for sure. Now, the thing is, with Audis, you do have to adopt a slightly different driving style. As even with this front-wheel drive version, if you try and drive it like a BMW, it's not really going to give you what you want. What you have to do is either drive it at 8/10, like I am now, or 12/10. So you're either going at a fairly good pace, or you're going hell for leather. And the thing is, when you really give it some, for some reason, it just seems to sort of work. That means, if there's a bit of a gap in traffic, I can show you what I mean. But you go full traction off. There we go, ESC off. And look, a gap in traffic, beautiful. So you give it 12/10, slam on the brakes, and it just kind of seems to just go quicker. It's weird. Won't really oversteer because this is just the front wheel drive version, but it does just seem to go a lot faster than you expect it to, which is very odd. And in the wet, you can get the back end to move around. It's an Audi, and that's weird. Usually that only seems to happen in RS cars when you're really giving it some. Dual clutch gearbox gives me gears very quickly. Upshifts in lower RPM ranges can be a little bit slow, but downshifts are always very quick. But when you're really on it, I mean, it's fast. Oh look, third, fourth, third, fourth. It's very good. The only time dual clutch gearboxes are slow is when you try and upshift through like 3 or more gears. So if I try and go for like 6th gear now, see, it kind of just, it takes a little while. But downshifts, for some reason, you'd think it would be like the same with downshifts, but it can go through like 5 gears very quickly on downshifts. Right, let's take it down a tighter B road and see what that's like. Okay, let's go. This is where this like A4, A5 size of car is pretty decent. The thing I'm really liking is the way it bites into a corner. This front wheel drive version actually feels very hot hatchy. Suspension in the S-Line cars is very good as well. It's like perfect for UK roads. It's stiff enough that, you know, the car doesn't wallow around too much, but it's also compliant enough that you're not sort of like hurting your back after a long journey. It's very nippy, actually, very nippy. And I mean, that was reflected in the 30 to 70 time. This is strangely quick, but I don't believe it's mapped, as a mapped one I think would be quite a bit quicker than this still. It's just a really good engine. 60 before the corner, I don't think we will. Bit of wheel spin there. Just shows how punchy, I mean nearly hit 60. Shows how punchy this engine is though. Audi's 2-litre engines are a marvel, I have to say. They are just brilliant. If it handled like a BMW, oh, this would be a proper beast then. It handles well for what it is, but I just wish they were a little less German with it. And I know that sounds a bit rude, but likely just slightly less clinical, just allow the car to be more relaxed, a bit more flamboyant. Not too flamboyant, you know, not Italian, but just a little bit more flair, even in the standard cars like this, would be very much welcome. Because you're not making it less safe, you're just making it more fun. But they are going in the right direction, I have to say. These cars are mega. Right, today we are going to finish up around town because we did miss that section. And then we will do the conclusion, I suppose. So, town driving, what is this Audi A4 Avant like? Well, as I mentioned before, suspension is sporty but compliant. A little bit more compliant than a BMW. It's just, you know, it takes the edge off a little bit more. But you're not flopping around all over the place. Steering is nice and light, accurate, not very positive, as in it doesn't really want to turn into a corner until you're at higher speeds, as I said. But it is just nice. It's just nice. Gearbox is smooth for a dual clutch. It's not jerky, even at lower speeds. I know some journalists say it is jerky, but if you go and drive something like a Ford with their power shift transmission, that is a jerky gearbox. This is nowhere near as jerky as that. And if you get the Quattro version, it's just even more smooth. Or even smoother, I should say. I think I noticed the start-stop in this is actually pretty quick as well, compared to Audi's diesel cars. So let me just whack this into Eco now. Now, obviously, I hate start-stop, but this is just for demonstrations purposes. So when we come to a stop at some point, I can show you how effective it is. And it doesn't look like we're stopping now. Anyway, the car is ready. Oh look, there we go, a red light, perfect. So you come to a stop, engine off. Okay, look, it just starts quick enough, you know. Still not as instant as a mild hybrid with like a 48-volt battery, but it's a lot quicker than I was expecting it would be. Right, parking. This is where this size of car is very good, because we aren't much bigger than something like an Audi A3. So, into reverse. No reverse camera on this one. Don't really need it, to be honest. You've got plenty of steering lock. Parking sensors front and rear. And where's the line? There's the line. I can see where I'm going now. Parking sensors is nice and accurate as well. And getting into the space in one go is very easy. Also, when you're in the space, you can open your door to like the first notch, you know, where it holds it open, without slamming into other people's doors. Right, let's go. Just watch how fast the engine starts. It's almost instant. It's pretty good, really. But for like a commuter car, this is pretty much perfect. You're not going to get much better than this. Like, honestly, a Bentley, like a Bentley Bentayga, is only, I'd say, like 20-30% smoother than this. And when you consider the price, like, is it worth it? If you got millions, obviously it is. But if you don't, I wouldn't push your budget. And I know I sound mad saying that, but I've, you know, driven them, so I kind of know. But yeah, Audis are very good commuter cars. They just do that A to B pretty much better than anything else. Like Mercedes is a bit more flashy, like a little bit sportier than this, I would say. Like, they sort of have that rear drive bias kind of thing going for them. BMWs though, they're definitely the most exciting daily commuter cars by quite some margin. Or a Ford, you know, a manual Ford Focus ST is pretty good. But if you just want something that gets the job done reliably, then this is a really good pick. This or like a Lexus, what would it be? An ES, I think, would be the, or an IS, sorry, a Lexus IS 300 would be a pretty good choice. I find these are just a bit easier to use, plus you get very nice clicky buttons, which I do like. Anyway, time for a conclusion. So, why the Audi? Well, as I said, it's just easy. It de-stresses you more than the competition. However, that BMW 3 Series and Mercedes C-Class are very close in doing the same thing. The only areas the Audi does better than both is, for me, ease of use. Everything just seems a tad more intuitive. Again, for me. May not be for everyone, but it is for me. And then secondly, user satisfaction. All that money invested in tactile clicky switches is money well spent, in my opinion. It does genuinely make a difference. They do need to catch up to the competition in other areas though, but overall it's still a very solid choice indeed. As always, if you like this review, give it a like and why not subscribe, because not only can you see more content like this, you can see everything we have for sale. My name's Tom, and you've been watching Paragon Cars. I'll see you on the next one. Goodbye.